2 weeks ago, I reviewed WWF Unforgiven 1999. It was the final pay-per-view for Vince Russo as the head writer of the World Wrestling Federation before going to WCW. Yeah, the stories is that 2 weeks later, I think, after Unforgiven, mostly the bulk of the roster of the WWF tour around the UK. Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara signed with WCW. Other rumors like Russo never got paid. He was being overworked. I don't want to get into the more in the details. So anyway, Vince Russo's first pay-per-view as the head writer of the company in WCW was Halloween Havoc 1999 at the MGM Grand Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada on the 24th of October 1999. The attendance for the show was 8,464, and the buy rate for Halloween Havoc of 1999 is a 230,000 pay-per-view buys. I think it was a decrease from the 1998 Halloween Havoc show because that show got about 310,000 pay-per-view buys. The main event of that show was Goldberg versus DDP for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship because that match was cut off due to broadcast because the pay-per-view was too long. Anyway, so WCW in 99 was really the start of that decline of that popularity. WCW's, I can't really say sacked Eric Bischoff, but yeah, he was relieved of his duties as I think he was the exclusive vice president of WCW. He got replaced by Bill Bush, because I think it was the attendance was dropping. I think it was house attendance, house show attendance, live attendance. I think the ratings and the buy rate completely dipped. I done my research that you can find this on Wikipedia. I type in Eric Bischoff, and it brought up that WCW at the time in 1999 that WCW really lost $5 million because they signed a deal with Kiss. So anyway, yeah, it was a massive decline for WCW. In that popularity, this was like the beginning of the end of the company. Anyway, I don't want to get into talk about Russo's time as the head writer of WCW that much because, like I said in my 1999 Unforgiven pay-per-view review, that yeah, he had for years Russo said about he played a massive part of. He said he's create the whole Attitude Era. That's a lot of bullshit. He played a part of the success of the Attitude Era. The company's second boom period. But saying like he's created the whole Attitude Era, it's a load of BS, load of baloney. Anyway, so anyway, the commentators for Halloween Havoc of 1999 are Tony Schiavone and Bobby the Brain Heenan. So we're gonna start with the opening match to kick off Halloween Havoc of 1999. We got Disco Inferno defending the Cruiserweight Championship against Lash LaRue. It's really a shame. Like this match, it was an okay match, but it's just how shocking how the quality of the cruiserweight matches dipped in 1999. Because I watch a lot of cruiserweight matches. I review a lot of WCW pay-per-views of '96 and '97, and yeah, once in '97 and twice in '98. The cruiserweight matches were really good in those in those 3 years. Fast forward in 1999, and also a lot of bad cruiserweight matches in 2000. They completely dipped. 2000 was a shit year, and the cruiserweight matches sucked in 2000. But in 1999, you can tell it's completely dipped. Anyway, yeah, it was an okay match between Disco Inferno versus Lash LaRue. Lash LaRue become part of the MIA, the Misfits in Action. With Hugh Morris, Chavo Guerrero, Van Hammer. Anyway, Disco Inferno hit like a, I think it was an axe. No, hit the Last Dance. It's basically a Stone Cold Stunner onto Lash LaRue to win this match, and afterwards Lash LaRue attacked uh Disco Inferno. He hit like the Falcon's Arrow. It's similar to the Falcon's Arrow onto Disco, and he left. So I'm guessing like Lash LaRue is a heel. So moving on to the second match. This is a freeway street fight for the WCW. This is for the vacated WCW World Tag Team Championships. We got the Filthy Animals. That is Billy Kidman and Conan. Originally, it was supposed to be Rey Mysterio and was supposed to be in this match. Rey Mysterio and Conan supposed to be defending the tag team titles on the show. Unfortunately, Rey Mysterio was basically got injured, and Kidman was basically the last minute replacement of Rey Mysterio. Yeah, the Filthy Animals defeat Holland Heat on the Go Home show to Nitro for the tag team titles. So anyway, and you got the first family, that is Hugh Morris and Brian Knobbs. Brian Knobbs is one half of the Nasty Boys, and also you got Holland Heat. Holland Heat, you got Booker T and Stevie Ray. In the first family corner, you got Jimmy Hart. First family is basically a random tag team. It's got a similar. This is a similar scenario as was it called the Head Cheese? That is Al Snow and Steve Blackman. Anyway, back to this freeway tag team match. It was an okay match. It was too short. It wasn't a bad match, to be honest. He had some moments. Yeah, it was a little short. You had some moments like I think you had Hugh Morris grill press Billy Kidman and really dropped him onto like this chair. You had Holland Heat fight. I think it was Booker T accidentally hit his brother Steve Ray in the face. You had Hugh Morris hit like a moonsault onto Conan and really put Conan through a table. In the end, Booker T pins Brian Knobbs. So you thought Holland Heat won this match. Unfortunately, you had, I think, Kidman pins Hugh Morris. So it's between Holland Heat and Filthy Animals. Which one won the tag team titles? Unfortunately, they give it to Holland Heat. Yeah, the finish was so confusing. They give Holland Heat the victory because they got the pin first, so it was okay, but it was confusing as fuck. And because unfortunately that title chain doesn't mean nothing because the next night on Nitro, the Filthy Animals regained the tag team title. So that was a pointless title change. Like I say, it wasn't a bad match, but it wasn't like fantastic. It was something in the middle. I'll call it thumbs in the middle. Slightly thumbs in the middle for me. So moving on to the third match. The third match, we got Eddie Guerrero versus Perry Saturn, two future members of the Radicals. This is the time there was a bit of a faction warfare between I think it was the start of the rivalry between the Filthy Animals and the Revolution. Not the Revolution from TNA, but the Revolution from WCW. I think that was Shane Douglas, Perry Saturn. I'm guessing that's Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit with Asia. Soon to be the debuting of Asia because Asia will be the China ripoff. With the Filthy Animals, you got like Rey Mysterio, without the mask. He'll put the mask back on when he was in WWE. Eddie Guerrero, Billy Kidman, Conan, and Tori Wilson, and later on she left the group and she got replaced by Tigress. Anyway, disappointed. It wasn't a bad match, to be honest. It was okay, but the problem is it was a bit boring. The fans were chanting boring. They're chanting boring, boring. It wasn't loud, but it was a bit silent. Anyway, Anyway, the ending. Oh, I thought like, the match ended with a win. Unfortunately, the match ended in disqualification. You had Rick Flair. You had some moments, but yeah, like I said, it was a bit boring. Could be a lot better. In the end, you had Ric Flair came out and basically hit Eddie Guerrero with a crowbar, and also hit Billy Kidman with the same crowbar, and make out with Tori Wilson. He was wearing like a suit and tie. I don't know why Ric Flair interfered and then attacked two members of the Filthy Animals. Don't know. Don't want to get into it. You know. Um. Anyway. Moving on to the match was like I said, the Eddie Guerrero Perry Saturn match. I think the problem is they just do not click. It, they're good workers, Eddie Guerrero and Perry Saturn, but I think they just did not. They never gel well. They just never gel well because they're both good workers. I think Eddie had great matches with with Benoit and Dean Malenko. I think that match at Starrcade of '97. But with Perry Saturn, they did not click. I don't know why. I don't think they had a match. I don't think they had a match in the WWF. They were members of Radicals. Anyway. So, and DQ finish was basically just random R. This is like I said. This is the first pay-per-view of the Vince Russo era. Okay, moving on to the next match. The next match, I'm going to keep it short and simple. We got Berlin versus Brian Armstrong. Brian Armstrong is basically the younger brother of Road Dogg Jesse James. The match sucked. It was boring. Berlin's gimmick. Berlin is Alex Wright, the Does Thunder Kid, with Michael Wall. Not Michael Wall. I'm gonna say Michael Wall Street, but it was the Wall. Sorry, the Wall in the Berlin's corner. In the end, I'm guessing like Berlin was going for like a net breaker, but Armstrong hold on the ropes, pin Berlin to get the victory, and then afterwards Berlin and the Wall beat down Brian Armstrong. Basically, everyone was like trying to push Berlin. I think they dropped the ball on Berlin with Alex Wright. I mean his new look. He had the mohawk and the facial hair. With the beard. It's a damn shame. I'm not saying he's going to be world champion, but trying to push him up the card. Unfortunately, I'd rather have Berlin win this match instead of, because Brian Armstrong is a jobber. It didn't do well. You know. Anyway, so moving on to the next match, match number 5. We got Chris Benoit defending the WCW TV Championship against Rick Steiner. Match was, I can't really say this match was terrible, but this match was mediocre. You had basically you had Rick Steiner had some offense. He had mostly the offense. Benoit basically came back, hit some like the typical Benoit stuff, like the I think it was the German suplex. I think he hit like one more of the match, or really in the quarter of the match. Benoit trying to hit the flying headbutt, but I'm guessing like Rick Steiner throw a chair into Benoit's face, and then and you got Dean Malenko basically came out. By the way, at the start of the show, they announced that they quit the Revolution, but instead you thought like Malenko was going to help Benoit retain the title, but instead Malenko turned on Chris Benoit, basically hit him in the head with the chair. Rick Steiner pinned Benoit for the victory and wins the television title. Yeah, and by the way, Malenko rejoined the Revolution. I think it'll be 4 members of the Revolution. It'd be Malenko, Shane Douglas, Asia, and Perry Saturn. Yeah, like I said, it was disappointed. Wow, the fucking Radicals, the 2 members of the Radicals had fucking bad matches, Three-thirds of the future members of the Radicals, Benoit, Guerrero, and Saturn, they had disappointing matches. Anyway, it's just like the quality sucked. I think some matches was about very short, but it was boring. It was boring and mediocre. So moving on to the next match. The next match we've got Lex Luger. He's now rebranded as the Total Package, taking on Bret Hart. So on the go home show to Nitro, you had Luger hit Bret Hart in the leg with Sting's baseball bat, because I'll explain to talk about Sting a little bit later. So just and then they set up this match on the show: Luger versus Bret. I think they had a match in the WWF in the early to mid '90s. I don't think they had a match. They were co-winners of the 1994 Royal Rumble match. I think they had a match down the road, like on a Monday Night Raw or Superstars, but not Superstars, but on a Raw, but not on a big pay-per-view. But anyway, this was not a good match. It wasn't boring, but it was fucking mediocre. I think like Luger worked on the leg of Bret Hart. Basically locked him in the Boston leg crab. Bret Hart taps. Luger got the victory. What the fuck? And yeah, this is Bret Hart's worst pay-per-view matches. It's very shocking how Bret Hart he was producing a lot of bad matches in WCW. In the WWF, he was putting on great fucking matches in the tag team, and also matches with Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin, Mr. Perfect, maybe The Undertaker, with his brother Owen. The list goes on and on and on. But in WCW, I think he had one or two good matches in WCW, but most of them they're fucking bad. I don't know why. I don't want to get into it, but anyway. So moving on to the next match, we got Sting defending the WCW title against Hulk Hogan. Sting turned heel at the previous month's pay-per-view Fall Brawl, and that was stupid because it was basically a heel turn for the sake of a heel turn. And compared to his heel run in '99 and 2008 in TNA, I like his TNA run in his heel turn in TNA. Because he was part of the Main Event Mafia. People think it's still bad, but it had some purpose. He played that character that well. But people just do not like Sting as a babyface. Not babyface, but as a heel. Anyway, so basically in this match, for weeks he's beating down Hulk Hogan with the bat. So yeah, this match you had Hogan wearing his street clothes, and it was not really a match. It was more like an angle. Basically, Hogan laid down on the floor. Sting pins Hogan. And Sting retains the WCW title. What the fuck? I think they had bad matches, Sting, over the years. They had a bad match I think it was at Starrcade. I think it was with a bad ending. That's a future classic WCW pay-per-view for another time. They also had that bad match in TNA 12 years later. When Sting was the fucking Joker. Yes, I think Sting and Hogan really had bad matches. They just never had any chemistry. That's another. Don't want to get into it, but yeah, this match. Why they made it short? This is typical Vince Russo. A lot of swerves, backstage assaults and shoots and works. I don't want to get into it. But yeah, why is it short? Why can it have I don't know why they did that. It's just basically a predecessor of what they did. This is planting the seeds for what they did. A year later at Bash the Beach, I covered that show on the channel. With the match between Jeff Jarrett and Hulk Hogan. It led to basically Jarrett laid down for Hogan. Hogan pins. Led to the shoot promos. Anyway, moving on to the next match. Oh boy, the show never got better afterwards. Anyway, and you got Sid Vicious defending the United States title against Goldberg. They built this on this show. You had basically early on the show, basically Goldberg beat down Sid Vicious. Sid was bleeding, and Sid was bleeding in this match. Basically, it was a fucking shit match because Goldberg everyone knows he's not a good worker. Sid is an absolute the shits. The whole match, you basically had, I think Sid had some offense, but the whole bulks of the match, you had Goldberg beating down Sid Vicious. The beating down. And afterwards, the referee throwing it away. Basically, Sid was unable to finish this match. Goldberg win this match, and he retained the United States title. And before the start of this match, you had You had Scott Hall and Kevin Nash beating down Goldberg because they had history in the past. Kevin Nash, broke Goldberg's streak at Starrcade in 1998. But why? I don't want to get into it, but it's typical Vince Russo-esque. Like random outside interference, random beatdowns. So it set up the I Quit match at Mayhem the following month, and also they had this package that Sid say I quit. It's basically a rip off what they did. WWF did it really early that year at the Rumble in the match between Mankind and The Rock in that I Quit match. Ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posy. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Before moving on to the final two matches of this pay-per-view, there are a lot of random segments on this pay-per-view. You had Buff Bagwell came out. He had a dig between the two writers. He didn't bring up Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara's names up. Basically, they said about they are the writers of the North to come to save WCW, and also he calls out Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett came out. This is Jeff Jarrett's first pay-per-view appearance back in the company because it's been 2 years in the WWF. His final really pay-per-view match with the WWF was in a housekeeping match with China at No Mercy. He and Jarrett left on bad terms. Another topic for another time. Anyway, both Bagwell and Jeff Jarrett were brawling, and you got Lex Luger grab Jarrett's guitar. He thought he was going to hit Jarrett with the guitar, but instead he smacked the guitar in the head of Buff Bagwell. Then we got another random segment with Medusa. Medusa came out wearing a bikini. She is damn hot, Medusa, at the time. She's got good tits, and she came out basically promoting WCW's cologne. I don't know if they really sell the cologne. I think they did, but I think they didn't do much in merchandise. I don't want to get into it, but basically, this is another random ass segment. Basically, she brought the writer's name, didn't bring up Vince Russo's name and Ed Ferrara's name, didn't bring up the WWF's name. Basically, say they are the writers of New York, and said this is she said this is bullshit. She emptied the bottle of cologne and poured it right over the head of Bobby the Brain Heenan. And then speaking of this one second kind of make a lot of sense. Basically had DDP and Kimberly came out. Basically talk about Ric Flair. Basically DDP challenged Ric Flair to a strap match, and I'm talk about this match right now. Yeah. Ric Flair versus DDP in a strap match because I think it was on a Go Home show to Nitro, you had Kimberly basically trying to seduce Ric Flair's son, David Flair, basically hitting on and flirting with Davey Flair. Yeah, I don't know, I say Davey Flair. I'm supposed to say David, but Davey, it's a short, it's the same name, David. Anyway, so basically in that same segment, you basically had Ric Flair spanking Kimberly 14 times to set up this match, and for the love of God, after these 8 matches, some are bad, but others are not so. They're okay, but a little bit mediocre. We got one really. This was a good match. This is a strap match. This is not like typical strap match. You have to touch 4 corners. This was a good match. This was basically the breath of fresh air. It was a good match. They were brawling in the crowd. Ric Flair was bleeding because basically, like, he took multiple shots in the head by DDP using the whip as the weapon. The whip played a massive part in this match. Basically had one more match. He basically had Ric Flair wrap the strap around DDP's neck, locked him in the figure four leg lock, trying to like injuring the leg of DDP and trying to choke him up at the last time, in the same time, I'm trying to say. In the end, it was kind of like weird. Not weird. There was one botch. DDP hit the diamond cutter onto Ric Flair. Charles Robinson did the 2 count. I don't know because at the time, they were like a random couple, Ric Flair and Charles Robinson, because Charles Robinson was doing the Little Nate thing. I'm guessing they broke away from that. And basically, DDP won this match because the referee didn't do the 3 count. He's teased off the 3 count. I don't want to get into it, but in the end, DDP hit the referee Charles Robinson with the diamond cutter. Then you got David Flair came out. Kimberly low blowed, really kicked David Flair in the balls. That set up the Kimberly and David Flair match at Mayhem. And DDP basically grabbed the crowbar, hit Ric Flair in the nuts with it, and also beat down David Flair. And then you got the paramedics and the referees put Ric Flair on the stretcher, and then you got the Filthy Animals got the revenge from earlier. Basically had Eddie, Conan wearing the sling, and Kidman basically beat down Ric Flair even more, beat down David Flair even more outside of the building. I don't know. It's not. I don't think it's set up. I don't think they set up a match. I don't want to get into it, but like I say, it was a good match. No, I can't. I have to put it match of the night. Well, yeah, the botch, the ending was a bit confusing, but the total good story between DDP and Ric Flair. Moving on to the fucking main event. Oh, by the way, earlier Sting, did an open challenge who will face him in the main event, and one person answered the main event was Goldberg. Goldberg won the United States title from earlier, and by the way, I think it was on a Nitro weeks after the show. He lost it in a four-way match. I think Scott Hall won the four-way match. Yeah, we got Sting versus Goldberg for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. It was a typical Goldberg-esque match because Goldberg never worked in long matches. Because WWE did it, did that mistake in 2003. That's completely backfired because he never played in Goldberg's strength. But in WCW, we have Goldberg competing in these 2 to 3 minute squash matches. Basically, Sting had some offense. Basically, did the Stinger splash. In the end, Sting hit Goldberg hit the spear and the jackknife to win this match and win the WCW title for the second time. Yeah, it was meh. Just meh. Wasn't bad, but it was just a typical meh. And then afterwards, Sting got pissed off and hit Charles Robinson with the Scorpion Deathlock to end the show. Yeah, this was bullshit. And this was Sting's final reign as WCW champion because, he never won another world title ever again in WCW because I think his last ever title match was against Jeff Jarrett at the next year's Halloween Havoc of 2000. It'll take 7 years until Sting win another world title. That will be in TNA against Jeff Jarrett at Bound for Glory of 2006 when he won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And the next time, Nitro, they completely reversed the fucking decision because it was not a title match. And also at the same time, they completely stripped Sting off the World Heavyweight title belt. Why they fucking did that, I don't want to get into it. And they set up a 32-man tournament. Bret Hart win that 32-man tournament at Mayhem. That's another really classic WCW pay-per-view for another time. So yeah, that was bullshit. Having Sting. Sting. I don't know why Sting competing in this pay-per-view because that fucking bullshit against Hogan. That basically a segment, and the Goldberg match was basically meh. It's a typical Goldberg match because Goldberg cannot work a long match. He's better off doing these squash matches. But why why Sting has to? Why have they fake it Sting away? Take the title away from Sting. I'm trying to say why because it was stupid. It didn't do anyone any purpose because it basically screwed Goldberg out of that world title win because Goldberg only won one world title in WCW, and have him win the title at Halloween Havoc, and like I say and then the next night he's not the new world champion, and Sting he didn't keep the world title. I think he got eliminated in the quarterfinal. I think it was the quarterfinal or the semifinal stage of that World Heavyweight Title tournament at Mayhem against Bret Hart. I don't want to get into it. It's so fucking stupid. It's Vince Russo s. Don't want to get into it. You have to find. It's just frustration, man. My final rating for Halloween Havoc of 1999, the first pay-per-view for Vince Russo as the head writer of WCW. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. This is not bad as the 1995 Halloween Havoc show because that show was the drizzling shits. The only good match on the show has to be Ric Flair versus DDP in the strap match. It was good. Yeah, the ending was whatever. In the middle, I put the Disco versus Lasharoo for the cruiserweight title. That was an okay match. The freeway tag team match, that street fight for the tag team title belts, it was okay, but the finish was bogus. It was shit and confusing. Eddie and Perry Saturn, it could be a good match, but it was a bit boring. It was okay, but a little bit disappointed. Benoit versus Perry Saturn. I'm bouncing around between bad and okay, but I'm gonna play it okay for what it is. Yeah. It's just the finish with Malenko turn on Benoit was typical Finso esque, and there were a lot of shit matches on the show, like Luger versus Brett, that bullshit thing with Sting and Hogan, Sid versus Goldberg. Yeah, I don't really put Sting and Goldberg as a okay or bad, but for me, it doesn't really do nothing for me. It's basically just a typical Goldberg match. Anyway, so hope you enjoyed my review of WCW Halloween Havoc 1999. I give it a thumbs down. If you watch this on the network, skip it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my review of Halloween Havoc 1999. Hope you enjoyed this review. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Smash the like button and subscribe to the Central Man Network on YouTube. Next week's Halloween. I'm gonna do a which random Halloween Havoc pay-per-view I'm going to review next. You have to wait until next week. So this is Essential Man officially signing out. Halloween Havoc 1999, the first pay-per-view for Vince Russo as the head writer of WCW. Thumbs down. A thumbs down show.